Cafe Networking Podcast promotes successful business experts. I'm Tom Rioch, known as the King of Networking, connecting people throughout the world from my podcast studio in Brazil. Joining us today from Charlotte, North Carolina is Brittany Burton, owner, designer at the Resume House, teaching mid-career professionals a little resume magic, having taught hundreds of professionals how to craft a powerful and tailored resume. So Brittany, how do you know when it's time to leave your job?
Well, Tom, before I jump into the questions that I love for people to ask themselves, I want to give a little disclaimer. And that is, as I'm sharing these questions, someone is nodding their head yes, like, oh, I need to leave my job. This is not me telling you to close this podcast episode, box up your office, and walk out the door, okay? This is the first step in a career change, is making the decision, right? It's not, abandoning a paycheck unless, you have some sort of mental or physical health reasons. Do not just close this episode, quit your job, and have no options. That is not what I am telling you to do. Okay, so if you're sitting there, you have some curiosity. Okay, maybe it might be time to leave my job. I have 3 questions that I think you should evaluate, you should ask yourself. And the first one is really important. It's, what are your priorities for your life right now and for your career? So some examples of that might be, is your top priority to grow in responsibility and pay? Well, if that's your top priority, does your current company or organization have any room for that? Or maybe it's, I want to reach some harmony between my work and my family life. And that is my top priority right now. Well, if, they've got you working 60 hours a week and you never see your kids, so that's something that you should consider. Or maybe you really want to have this deep sense of fulfillment in your work. You want to see that the work that you're doing is making an impact, or that it matters. And, maybe you're willing to give up the responsibilities and the growth in pay because you want that. So just tell people to take a minute and evaluate, what are my priorities? Even write them down and get a clear understanding of what matters to you. And then look at that and say, okay, of these priorities, what are my top 1 or 2? So if they're like growth and family balance, well, maybe you're making a huge impact in your work, but that's not your priority. So that may not be enough to just ignore what you want. And so after you evaluate, okay, is my job meeting my top priorities? Then move on to this next question. Does your job align with your values? So that might sound like fancy speak. So another way of saying that is, are you working in an environment that reflects your ethics, your principles? I mean, think about it. You could be in an office where the culture is terrible. You're not being respected. Maybe your boss is talking down to you. Maybe you're expected to work 24/7 and you're not even compensated for that.
Maybe your company was just bought out by another company yesterday.
Yeah. So, I mean, even if you don't have like a concrete example of, this is how my values are not being honored, I can promise that there's a feeling, and you've got a gut feeling if there's alignment or not. And it's so important in your career. I can say from my own experience that lack of alignment can really affect your mental health and even your physical health. It's going to impact other areas because you spend, a majority of your week working. So how you spend that week impacts how you show up in the other hours of your week.
No,
I'm sure you've experienced that.
And I've interviewed so many different people. We're talking about burning out, talking about the conflicts, talking about being consumed in the environment. And these are all things that are happening. And really, maybe the question should not be, when is it time to leave your job? But maybe it should be, should we be prepared for when the job wants to leave us? Because what we see out there, today, literally today, yesterday, last week, you hear the news and thousands of people are being let go.
So many.
And you may get into the office on Monday morning, you get your coffee and your cookies, and then you get a slip, or maybe you get an email, or maybe you don't get anything. Maybe your tag doesn't work on the door anymore. So maybe it gets back to the point of being ready. That's all.
You should. And then my last question, and I think you'll have a response to this is, how much of your workday is draining versus energizing? Mm-hmm. So, Tom, I'm sure you've experienced this where you get into a flow state when you're doing something. Maybe it's not in someone's job. Maybe you've never experienced this at work, but maybe you're doing something when you're volunteering or something else where you're working and the hours just fly by and it doesn't feel like you're just staring at the clock, like waiting for this task to end, or you're constantly putting off your tasks. I mean, listen, nobody has a job where they feel energized all day long. Right. But if like 80% of your day is completely draining you, or 100% of your day is completely draining you, well, that might be a huge sign that it's time to consider what your next move should be. I mean, there is such a marked difference in how you live your life when it's energizing.
So whenever that time comes, you're the person to call.
Well, I hope so.
Well, then how can listeners find you? What is that? Because I agree with everything you said.
Yeah.
But many times persons that are in that situation, they don't really know how to reach out or to whom they can reach out. So what you offer is something that's online, it's accessible. It's not necessarily face-to-face.
That's so true. So I am found at theresumehouse.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn or on Instagram at The Resume House. And this is kind of like what I just went through is part 1 of a free video series I have on my website. It's called Career Change Formula. So like that first step is, should I leave my job? But the next step is, well, where do I want to go?
Right.
So I kind of have a workbook and a video that helps you walk through, where do I want to go and how do I begin to market myself for where I want to go?
That's the point.
And that is where my expertise really comes into play. So if someone's listening and they're like, yes, I'm ready to go, I would love to help. And if someone's saying the writing is on the wall, like you said, and I think I'm about to be let go, well, it is, like you said, better to be prepared.
Oh, somebody's taking down the wall, man. I've seen that over and over and over from my networking experience.
Yeah.
People think about networking for 2 reasons. If they're in a job, they want to find a client. They want to sell something. And if they just lost their job, they want to find a job.
Yep.
And they don't understand there's a middle of the road there, and the marketing part I think it should actually start before either happens. You have to market yourself. That's personal branding. You have to be out there.
Yeah, you do, because it's just blindly sending your resume for hundreds of applications is only going to be so effective. I mean, I can teach you how to create a really great one, but someone else knows somebody, they're not even going to look at your resume.
Right. They don't even want the resume.
They don't want to see it. They don't care.
I thought that they want to see it, but it's the personal interaction.
Absolutely.
It's the trust of a person recommending another.
Absolutely. We take that very seriously. We all do.
No, and it is. We're talking about trust and integrity. We talk about the values which you stated. That has to be shown to other third parties very quickly.
Agreed.
Because even to the resume portion, if anybody's looking at anything, it's a short period of time.
Yes.
They're not going to sit down and say, well, I'm going to take 3 hours to. It doesn't happen.
Yep.
So to find you, what is the site that they can find you?
Yeah, it's just theresumehouse.com.
And on LinkedIn, how do you show up?
I'm on there as Brittany Burton.
And Brittany's Brittany, and the last name Burton.
Yes.
And they'll find you either way, and that's a good start.
Yeah.
Even if you don't want to leave, right? I think it's just interesting to talk to you just for anything, right?
I would love that.
Well, Brittany, thanks for being here and sharing your experience.
Thank you so much, Tom.
Okay, so again, Brittany Burton on LinkedIn and theresumehouse.com. Cafe Networking is brought to us by Focus MI Market Intelligence, an agricultural market research specialist in Brazil. More information at focusmi.com. Talk to Tom, talk to the world. Thanks for listening. Until the next time here at Cafe and Networking Podcast.